Welcome to Driven to Create, the podcast that explores the journeys of those who can't help but bring their ideas to life. Today's episode seems very appropriate. It's called No Country for Old Filmmakers. I'm, as always, trying to be cute. But, it's a topic that's been kind of like swirling around my mind a lot lately. I'm getting older. For the record, I'm not that old, but I feel like once you start having a family and getting a house and doing all those like adult things, life kind of reminds you that, hey, maybe it's time to reprioritize or at least understand where you are versus where you were. Because I don't know about, everyone else, but yeah, I feel like mentally I'm still 25 and I'm 39 now. So, next year's the big year. But, I think, often, at least I did, I took for granted how much time I truly had or like lack of accountability, and then, you get older and you have a significant other and potentially a child, and you realize that your life is no longer your own. you have to be accountable to people, and like before, when I'd have to be accountable to people, it was ones that I'd work with, and I can choose to ignore them if I mentally couldn't handle it. But now it's not really an option. So I think that, one of the biggest things, for 30 somethings or people that start younger or slightly older, is that you inevitably have to figure out what is really important to you and make everything work around that. So, and again, like that's something, I'm figuring out, but it's definitely an interesting experience. It's stressful, okay? Like it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. I'd say that the managing the life and mental stuff is harder than any hard job that I've ever done. But it's hard in a different way, and I think there's a lot of things to talk about with that, and I'm going to try to dive in and share a little bit of information, but also, kind of make generalized questions that I assume that other people struggle with or deal with, and, figure out how to make it work best for all of us, especially in a career like creative where, it's not typically a standard schedule, and we have weird working hours, we have weird habits and stuff like that. So, all right, let's get into it. It's going to be a big one. So yeah, it's this episode is kind of near and dear to my heart because I've been thinking a lot lately, especially when you look at, I know comparison, whatever they say about comparison, it's the devil or something. But like you look at people who aren't in the creative field, and you almost compare their life. They have the white picket fence and stuff like that, and they have like a 9 to 5, and they just go home and they drink beer and fall asleep. Maybe they're good parents and they take care of their kids, hopefully, but they have a more predictable life. And I feel like even as a creative, once you start a family, it's almost dragging you into that predictable life. Like I can't tell you how many times I've seen Bluey and I want to shoot myself. Even though it's one of the better kid shows, but it's so funny because before all this, it's been it's just been like I would just work or do whatever. I'd never really have to have plans unless I wanted them. But I'm realizing that there needs to be an aspect of flexibility, when you start being accountable to others. and that's taken a little bit to kind of get the hang of. I'm sure that other people, like the structured life might be a little bit easier to adapt. And I'm not saying this is easy for anyone. I think raising a child and doing all that it's a huge thing. I don't think it can be overstated. And it's probably the most important thing we actually do. But I think the flexibility. So I feel like people who work in the creative fields, we're like on both sides of the coin. So we're working every day or we're not. Like if you're working on films, you may not be working every month or every day or whatever. So you do have some flexibility to do doctor's visits and stuff like that. But the problem is it's infrequent. So if you're booked for a solid month, your schedule is going to obviously put more stress on your partner. So I found that, like when I'm not busy, I'm always busy, but when I'm not like urgently busy, there are some opportunities for me to do work around the house, get some projects done, pick up some slack for the baby and stuff like that. But, other than that, if you're really trying to shoot towards like a specific goal, like if you're trying to finish a project, for whatever creative field that you're in, the work's still got to get done. And, I think one of the differences between our field and others is that it's not just implementation. There's a lot of thought that goes into it, and research and development and messing around and messing things up and then fixing them. And, I like as of late, I've been feeling like I'm not implementing fast enough. But like if you want to get something good, you really need to like build it and rip it down to the studs a couple times to just get it right. And it's not necessarily perfectionism. It's just like the creative process is inefficient. But I think that's the beauty of it. It's through iteration and more information that you're given, from the design or from whatever you're making. I think it gets refined over time, and I think that the tenacity is something that's inherent in a lot of creatives, and the flip side of all that is when you're busy with life stuff, you find yourself maybe working at midnight or 1 a.m. on your creative project, something that you're trying to accomplish. And, having a family isn't like a 9 to 5 type gig. It kind of just doesn't stop, especially when you have a child that's sub 5 years old, anything less, and it kind of just doesn't stop. So it's almost like, you almost have to teach yourself, and I'm still trying to teach myself how to be more efficient with my time and make sure that the time that I am devoting towards work is almost like, okay, here's a block of time that I'm iterating on something. Here's a block of time that I'm like ticking off, check boxes. Excuse me, because I think one of the issues is like, if you're trying to like mix those things in together, you tend not to make as much like meaningful progress as you like. So I started like bucketing different little, blocks of time together. Cause you never know if the baby's going to wake up in the middle of the night, or you never know if you'll be needed at, 11 a.m. the next day or something like that. So like, luckily with me, I do have some flexibility where if I have to leave the house super fast on a weekday, there's no boss, screaming down my, my neck or whatever, breathing down my neck, for something. But so there is the flexibility in that, but then there's also the inflexibility of, if you're on a shoot or something, you're gone, it's not something you can easily leave from, without costing somebody a lot of money, or a lot of time or whatever. So, I think there's a toss up that, I've been thinking a lot about, especially with like, I would venture to say that it's much easier balancing a traditional schedule, somebody with a traditional career, even though it's hard, it's still hard for everybody. All right, I don't need anyone yelling at me, but I feel like if the schedule is predictable, you can at least kind of work through that a lot easier. But not knowing when you can get work done, or get to the point that you're at, like especially if you're in the zone, you get taken out of it. It takes some time to get back into it, and that's just how it goes. At least for me, and it takes a good amount of time just to get back into that flow. But I started asking myself, a few years ago, it's like, how much of this, like, where does this drive come from? For this, for my creativity, my career, and stuff like that. And like, what role does ego play in it? Because as I started, thinking about, your priorities do shift, but my end goal is still the same. So, when I had a child, I realized, I'm like, oh, okay, this is the most important thing in my life. Like, this is pretty cool. I never expected this, but this is pretty cool. This got stuff falling over here. And my work kind of took a little bit of a backseat, and it was always the most prominent thing in my life was my work. So, I kind of had to take a step back and examine. I'm like, all right, so maybe to some level there is some, level of my own ego that wants me to be a success in this, this sort of thing. Maybe it's something to prove, like maybe I have something to prove to myself or to others. So I started examining those types of things as I was, kind of transitioning to make sure that, maybe work can wait a few hours while I take my daughter to the playground with my wife, or maybe I should just make myself available, even if, we're doing nothing. It frustrates the heck out of me sometimes because I'm always thinking of like what I could be working on, but it's everyone always says that, you're not going to be thinking about what work you missed out on your deathbed. And yeah, I mean, maybe I will. I'll probably be like, yo, we didn't finish that thing. I'll be talking to Tori and I'll call him up and be like, hey, we got to finish doing this. Get this done after I'm gone. But, I think it's a weird balance, because I don't think that there's like this oasis where your creative career can coexist peacefully with like your personal goals and your family life, because I think it's just it's like a battle that never ends. And like, thankfully no one gets hurt at the end, but I mean, they could get hurt, if that balance goes way off. But I think there's always a little bit of push and pull with that, and it's figuring out like what works best for you and your family, and then what works best for your endeavors, because you can't diminish yourself in order to provide for others, because ultimately they're not getting the best version of you. So I think it takes a lot of like introspection and self-reflection, and just a conscious journey to improvement, because I don't think there is that end goal. But I think that for me, it's like I always wanted to, or over the past few years, I realized like, I think I'm trying to figure out how to say this, but like prior to having a child, I think I wanted to be a success for my own ego, and probably some validation because, when I was a kid, I didn't really have like any talents or anything, nothing spectacular. And I gained these talents through my career. So it gave me a sense of validation. So before I had a child, there was a lot of that like internal, storm going on. And then afterwards, I remember thinking, I'm like, I want to be a success so I can be a model for her. So as she's growing up, she can see something that's not standard, like not the typical not the typical path that people take. But it's like, oh, he works hard, he's here, he provides for the family, like, he's attentive, he's fair, honest, stuff like that. Critical thinking is like a huge, huge thing that I'm a proponent of. And I'd like to be able to be an example for that. So it's almost like the end goal is still the same, but the priorities and just the way the intent is slightly different now. So it's so fascinating. And like, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I'm just trying to present like a pretty balanced picture of, some of that push and pull. But I think work-life balance is a complete myth. I think that there is a little bit of equilibrium, but it's not. I think that you're usually teetering on one side or the other, and it's kind of finding your way back to the middle before you kind of tip towards the other side, and you got to rebalance and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's all about setting priorities and seeing where who do you want to how do you want to be seen in a while, and how can you still pursue your goals without sacrificing yourself, because I see how it's easy for parents to lose a part of themselves, and it's I don't know. I think that if we all decide to have children, like, it's our duty to give them the best of us. We shouldn't be worse. We shouldn't be worse than we started. Because then I think that stress, like reveals the true weakness in you, and like we all have it, and I have a ton of weakness, but like it's something that it's like if you're able to identify it and kind of push forward, push on without giving up. And I think I'm a sucker because I never give up, even when I probably should. But I think it's a wild journey. Being self-employed and then having a child is like having two children, and I don't know who cries more. Probably the business, but I I think it's it's just in a lot of ways it brings up some questions about like balancing your passion versus pragmatism, because there's a lot of like super talented people that have trouble paying the bills, and at some point you almost have to ask yourself, and I think AI might encourage people along this path faster than they care to, but it might force them, but maybe in some ways creativity can just be a hobby for some people, and I think or find elements within a more stable job to infuse creativity into. But I think over the next couple of years there's going to be a huge shift where I think a lot more people are going to be working for big companies, and I think some of these studios won't exist, and there's always going to be freelancers and stuff, but I think the prices are going to get driven lower and lower. especially as more junior employees or junior freelancers can utilize more AI tools. It's just going to drive the budgets down and down. And I wrote a blog article a couple months about this, but yeah, I think the gap in the middle is going to widen pretty significantly. And I think the people who care the most about their creativity, if they're struggling, will probably take a more pragmatic approach and then find those creative outlets on the side. And I truly think that if you can't find work as a creative, you shouldn't give up on being creative. Like, you should still, like, if it's who you are, you should find ways to incorporate that. And I'm like, it's kind of it's a super sensitive subject too, because like, not only is there a lot of competition nowadays, like, I've already heard conversations about, oh, can it be done in AI? And it's like, well, yeah, maybe, but like, are you flexible on the output, or is it a specific thing that you have in mind? Because like, I'm building an AI app. Like, I believe in this stuff, but I see how difficult it is to produce predictable outputs for the normal person. Where if you, especially if you're like in marketing or whatever, and you're trying to address a specific problem with a graphic or a video or whatever, you need that flexibility. And right now, you still need a person. You still need a human to help you along in that. But in the future, in the near future, that's going to be less and less of a problem. So somebody with just foundational understanding of video production will be able to pump out an ad campaign in a day, a full ad campaign, complete with visuals. So there's going to be a lot of discomfort over the next couple of years, and I feel like a lot of us who are in my age group, like 30 to 39, let's put it that, maybe a little older, 45. But I think everyone's kind of trying to figure things out right now, because I don't think you could really put your head in the sand with AI growing. And we're at that age where we have families now, and you almost have to think about, like, where are we going to... Okay, so right now I'm okay, but where am I going to be in 10 years? Because, I have a friend who's a really talented director and a gaffer, and, he's staunchly against AI. And that's his point of view, and I don't hate him for it. I understand, especially for people who really take pride in their work. I know it can be a huge blow, where it's like, oh, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. It's like, I think, especially with our age, adaptability is paramount. So not only do we have to adapt with changing technology, but we have to adapt with the changing expectations of us as a family member. So I think the adaptability is almost necessary. So even if you find like your niche and you're making a living and stuff, you need to take a more pragmatic approach to make sure that not only you are taken care of, but also your family. And I think that pragmatism is, I think it's been kind of optional. Like, even if you were a freelancer who only had a few clients, like, you found your way, over the past decade of like making a living. It might not have been easy, but it was possible. So when the option of possibility becomes smaller, then I think a lot of people are going to take, and I've already seen some peers, get full-time jobs, and I'm like, oh damn, we lost him, like that sort of thing. I'm like, oh, if he just held on a little bit longer, he would have been fine, because that that next job came in the month after or whatever. But like, it's totally understandable, because everyone's priorities do change. So I think it's just finding that balance too, where it's like, what is right for me? What is right for my family? How do I still not give up a piece of myself? And I think those are the three things that like stick out to me. And it's kind of wild. Sorry, I have my notes like right under camera because there was a few things. Of course, I never read my notes. Like I always print out like 2 pages of notes, and it's all like chicken scratch, and I don't know what it is, but there was one point that I wanted to make, and see, my notes save me. Is that so? I've never been good with boundaries, and over the past 3 years, I've really had to learn how to say no. And then I feel guilty about it all the time because like I never said no. I've always been a people pleaser, so it's like in the past, if somebody needed my help, if it were a client or like a personal friend or family member, I would always help, especially like, oh, it's so annoying. But like once people know that you're good at something, you will get endless requests. And I'm sure you guys realize that, but it's like if somebody knows you know how to shoot a video, everyone's asking you for feedback or for, can you shoot this? Can you tell me how to do this? Give me equipment list. I can't tell you how many equipment lists I've sent out over the years, and people never buy the stuff. And it's just like, I just need to have like templates of all this and update them once a year. And just, if somebody asks, just send them, here's what you got to get. But, I've had to start saying no to a lot of things, and it kills me because sometimes people have like fun projects. Sometimes it's easier to say no when they're asking you to shoot family photo or something. I'm like, I don't do that. I'm no good. But yeah, I've really had to start learning how to say no, and even with clients, like I would often put unrealistic deadlines on myself, or they were imposed on me. And now, like, there needs to be flexibility with deadlines, like, because now I'm accountable, to two other people. So is it really due tomorrow, or is it really Friday because you wanted 2 days before you sent it to your superior? And that's usually the case. So, I think like basically taking some control back. So it's almost a blessing in disguise. And I guess this comes with getting older and maturing, or maybe maturing, but kind of because you're losing control in other aspects of your life. And I don't say that as a bad thing, but like realistically, like some control is being taken from you. You almost instinctively try to gain control back from somewhere else. Like with me, it's not the healthiest ways, because my way of, getting control back is not going to sleep. I just, it's like 2 a.m. and even if I'm burnt out from work, I just refuse to go to bed. Just cause it's like, it's my decision. I finally have something, but the other aspect of regaining control is because your family is more important to you and things like that. Like the client becomes less important, and it doesn't mean you're doing a bad job for them, but if they had to take care of their family, they certainly would. So why should you be any different? So I think it's given me more courage. It's emboldened me a little bit, but I think I'm like pre midlife crisis. So like, that's why I'm thinking about this a lot lately. And, I mean, for the past, God, what? So I've been in video for 17 years. I did a little bit of web at the beginning of my career while I was doing video. Then I just became a hobbyist with coding for a while. And yeah, so over the past couple of years, it's just, and I just forgot what I was saying with that. So one quick note, I'm actually trying to change up the format a little bit, where I'm putting less pressure on myself to appear like, however I was appearing. I'm trying to just give it to the camera straight, and try not to rehearse anything. I never really had a strict outline to this podcast before, and I took a few months off just to figure out, like, there was something, like, I like the message and I like what I'm doing, but there was something that didn't necessarily feel right. So I took a couple months off just to, like, obviously get more work done on the app, and then we had client work for videos, but approach this more cerebrally, where it's like, I don't have all the answers. I have a ton of questions, but maybe as I'm kind of trying to figure out the solutions to everything in my life and my creative endeavors, hopefully I can share some of that, and then share that with other, like, other guests can share that with me. So maybe as a collective, like, we can all kind of figure this out. And we're probably never going to figure it out 100%, but, like, if we can get to, like, figure it out to, like, 85%, like, I would say that's a success. So yeah, I mean, like, so that's, I went off on a tangent before, and that's what and I also made a promise to myself, like, no cuts for ahs, whatever. Like, I want to keep this the way that it is. The previous episodes, there was no cuts either. I don't think I ever cut anything out, but I think the way I'm going to approach these next podcast episodes more conversationally, I'm obviously pensive, but kind of verbalize what I'm thinking, to document this. But I would say if you're in your 30s and you started a family, or you have a family, you probably can identify with some of the things I'm saying. If you're younger and you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I'm not going to listen to this episode, it's about kids, and there goes the gel. I think it's time to buy some new gaffer's tape. But if you're younger and you're kind of, well, that just messed up my whole color grading. See, and I would have cut to fix that. That's a bummer. Well, we have a slightly blue background. I would just say that there are some things you can take away from it, especially, like, being younger. Like, there is a sense of freedom, even if you're super busy and you're pulling all-nighters and stuff. You have the luxury of not feeling guilty for pulling all-nighters. I can't pull all-nighters anymore, not unless I didn't value my life. But so yeah, I mean, we got stuff falling apart down here. I think that's the best. I think it's, what are we at? 31 minutes, 35 minutes. But yeah, just a quick episode. I'll probably have a couple more solo episodes, and then we'll get some more guests on. Bear with me as I'm trying to figure this format out, because I know that there's a lot of value that can come out of this. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to do this. Basically, I'm trying to figure out a lot of stuff. But there's this. I'll leave you with one quote there from Red Dead Redemption 2. So I named the episode "No Country for Old Filmmakers" because obviously we're gonna have to work towards making this work for us. But there is a quote from Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't have it on my notes, so if it's not perfectly accurate, then whatever, deal with it. It's, we're thieves in a world that don't want us no more. And I was like, this is the most dad thing ever, but I was digging holes in the backyard for like post for a pergola, and for some reason that quote just popped into my head, and I couldn't get it out, and I'm like, man. I'm thinking about Arthur Morgan quotes while I'm digging up holes for a pergola post. I'm like, what is going on? This is horrible. But yeah, we're thieves in a world that don't want us no more. But I don't want it to sound that negative because, you know, had Arthur Morgan lived, spoiler alert, you know, he was already turning a page in his life, and he probably would have gave up the whole cowboy business. But so yeah, I'll leave it at that for today. I'll record another one. I got like a dozen topics lined up, probably 24, and it's just collecting my thoughts and then getting them out on camera. So all right, well, I hope you enjoyed. As always, you know, like and subscribe on YouTube, follow on Instagram, and leave a review on Spotify. There's like a poll too. Do that, and I'll be your best friend for like one day, and then I claw it back. All right. Well, have a great one. Bye.